Hi, I'm Roland Stevens, the General Manager of Government and Client Relationships at T Corp, and this is another instalment of our Vantage Fireside chat series. I am thrilled to be joined today by Brian Hartzer. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we're here to talk about artificial intelligence, which is something of interest, I think, to everybody at the moment, professionally and personally. Brian, our audience is the New South Wales government family. Mm-hmm. Many of them would be familiar with you. Some may not. So my first question to you is a rather broad question. Who is Brian Hartzer and what is Quantium?
Right. Well, I'm a group executive at Quantium. Quantium is a Sydney-based 23-year-old consulting and AI implementation firm. I like to describe us as sitting between McKinsey and Microsoft. So if you have McKinsey that'll do a PowerPoint deck for you on what you ought to do, and you've got Microsoft that'll say, here, license this and life will be great. We sit in the middle. About a third of our people are engineers. A third of them are data scientists. From time to time, we're the biggest employer of data science graduates in Australia. And then the other third of our people are people like me with business and consulting backgrounds. And we focus on delivering the impact for clients using big data analytics, and in the last couple of years, really focusing on generative AI. We've always used machine learning aspects of AI, but more recently, we've been really focused on helping clients in public sector and private sector with AI implementation. And for me personally, before that, I had a career in financial services, and I'm probably most infamous as the former CEO of Westpac.
Oh, thank you. So I'll come back to Quantium in a second and the work that you're doing and how it relates to AI. But I wanted to start maybe with a more personal question around AI, and I'm going to read a quote here, quote from you.
Okay.
In the AFR. I use AI all day, every day for everything, and everything I do now. It has profoundly changed my life, and it is both the best thing that has ever happened to me and the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Yes.
So I'm curious, why the best and why the worst?
Well, from a best point of view, so I start my day with AI and I finish my day with AI. I like to say that I have my morning Claude before I have my morning coffee. So it helps me get ready for the day, organize what's coming up, get prepared. But it's also been an amazing tool for me to both become more efficient and more structured in the way that I do things, and as a consequence, more creative. It gives you this ability to explore ideas in a structured way and to accelerate thinking things through such that I'm able to spend so much more of my time being productive and doing the things that only I can do versus spending my time on stuff. So if I think about 2 years ago, I probably would have spent, if I was lucky, 30% of my day doing things that only I can do, where it's using my experience or my judgment or my relationships with people to make an impact. Now that's probably 70 to 80% of my time, and the difference is the way I use AI. So it's just allowed me to be so much more productive and effective. The worst bit, I suppose what I'm referring to, is I'm a fundamentally curious person, and when you start to realize what these tools can do, if you are curious, you will find that your sleep suffers because
so it can be a rabbit hole.
It is a big rabbit hole, and you can find yourself you find yourself thinking, wait, I wonder if it can do this, or I wonder how I would do this, and then you try it and you think, oh my gosh, it can do that, and then you think, well, wait a minute, if it can do that, what about this, and what about this, and before you know it, it's 1 a.m. and you're thinking, I really need to go to bed.
So that's I guess in your life
Yeah.
day to day. If we now jump across to your role with Quantium, maybe I'll start with Quantium broadly. You said before somewhere between McKinsey and Microsoft. Do I read that as both strategy and solutions?
Yeah. Well, so the word we talk about endlessly internally is how we're delivering impact. So our interest is not in telling people what to do, but in actually helping them do it and see the outcome. And we try to measure our success based on the successful impact that we've had for the client. And so that in practice, what that means is we don't go away and do the work and come back. We usually embed people with the department or with the client, working alongside their people as an accelerant, helping them get things done. So as an example, in a government context, so the health business, which is part of my portfolio, during COVID, Quantium was the ones actually ingesting the daily infection data for the federal government Department of Health, forecasting where the infections were going to go, and then mapping that against where the aged care homes were and so on to figure out where should we send the vaccines and where should we send the PPE. And so we were working alongside in the government department with the government people, helping do the technical and analytical work to support that.
That would have been a sleepless time.
Yeah, we had a lot of people work really hard during that period, but it was very rewarding.
And so just thinking about how you work with your clients. So here at T Corp, we think a lot about AI and AI applications. A lot of our clients are as well, which is why no doubt you're so busy. And we for us, the most profound questions are, how do we increase investment returns and how do we push down the cost of borrowing? And we still haven't found a sort of connection between that and AI. Can you describe how you work with your clients to get to the nub of their most pressing problems or opportunities?
Yeah. So as an overarching statement, I think one of the things that we've learned through the work we've been doing is not to think about AI as a technology issue, which might sound slightly odd, but I like to describe the AI revolution as a paradigm shift in the way that work happens. And if you actually think about it from that lens, of course technology is really important and plays a role in that, but the critical piece is actually saying, what is the process that we do on a regular basis? What is the procedure that we follow? And knowing what we know about what AI can do, how can AI help accelerate and enable those processes? So if I use a simplistic example in the context of investing, so I have a CFA, and so I spent a couple of years learning how to do portfolio management and stock selection and all that kind of good stuff, so I know theoretically how to do it, but it's pretty time consuming to do it properly. And I suspect quite a lot of people, even people with CFAs, don't necessarily go through all the steps every day that they're meant to go through. But when you have an AI tool that has the ability to follow a set of instructions, that can do deep research on a sector, on a company, on an individual, that can ingest and find causal relationships between large data sets, and then can follow instructions about how to work through an investor process and look at an issue through different lenses. All of a sudden, you're freeing up the mental capacity of the people who do that work to really focus in on the judgments that they want to make, rather than the mechanics of the preparation of an investment case and so forth. And so that's where I think it's potentially incredibly powerful. It doesn't replace people, but it becomes this incredible accelerant for processes that free people up to think more creatively and thoughtfully and in a structured way in a more compressed time frame. And in the markets where you're trying to think ahead about scenarios and what might happen and what are the second and third order risks that we might apply to this and what's going on in a different market that might happen here, the ability of a human being to go and do all that research, you can do it, but it's going to take weeks. Whereas with the right structure in AI, you can actually have that stuff not only happen within the space of minutes, if not in some cases seconds, but you can have it happening, you can have it running on a regular basis. And so you're getting this kind of input. So you're coming in the morning and you've already got all this analysis of what happened overnight, what the implications of that might be if we apply our investment process to it, what are the implications of that? This is a silly little example, but to bring it to life for you. So one of the benefits when I was at Westpac is I got to spend a lot of time with Bill Evans, the very famous economist who was brilliant at telling you where interest rates were going to go. So that was one of the things I miss about not being at Westpac, was getting to hang out with Bill occasionally. So I built a digital version of Bill.
You bought a digital twin of Bill.
I have built
a digital Bill.
I built a digital Bill. And so I, from time to time, go to my digital twin of Bill and say, can you give me an update on what's going to happen to the Aussie dollar and to the RBA cash rate? and digital Bill goes away and does the research and comes back and gives me a note in Bill's voice of what he thinks is going to happen and why. And I've been running that for the last 9 months, and he's been spot on.
Well, I have the economists in my team. I'm wondering if I can now build a digital Brian.
That would be a bit scary.
So, okay, so you work across various industries at Quantium. Do you, obviously different industries have different characteristics, different levels of complexity, different levels of capital intensity and all the rest of it. Do you see particular, and government too is incredibly diverse in what it does. Do you see particular industries or industry types as being especially tractable to that benefit you've just described?
So I've been surprised how across the board this is. So there are variations, but I've been quite pleasantly surprised at the level of engagement in a very, very diverse way. So in government, we are working with probably 8 different federal departments at the moment who've all expressed interest in this, and the particular use cases of where they see the real benefit are different. But there's a lot of commonality in the notion that, hey, we've got growing demands on what we deliver and growing pressure on our supply and resources and budgets, and how do we make that work? And AI seems like a really useful way to try to do that. There's also a generic point that I've realized, which perhaps explains why this is so common. If you think about what knowledge workers do in pretty much every industry, arguably everyone who walks into an office all day essentially does the same 3 things, which is we gather data in some way, and that might mean we take notes in a meeting, or we receive an email, or we extract some data out of Bloomberg, or whatever it is. We then apply some judgment and analysis to that information that we've gathered in order to develop an insight or make a decision. And then having done that, we create some sort of an output. And that output might be we write an investor note or a paper or an email or a media release or whatever it is.
Policy memo or whatever
Policy memo,
yeah.
Regulatory return, whatever. So gather data, apply judgment, generate output. That is what we all do across pretty much every industry, would be my argument. And if you accept that premise and you know a bit about what AI can do, you suddenly realize, wait a minute, AI is really good at each of those 3 things. And so the challenge becomes looking at my business activity as a series of processes, which in the past you could only be deterministic in an operations environment that you follow these exact rules. But because AI can reason and can process unstructured information, it has the ability to play a role in a workflow that maybe is a little less deterministic. And that, to me, is the essence of why this is so powerful, is that whether you're looking at the executive tasks of strategy development, operational management, governance, stakeholder management, risk management, or people leadership, you could actually use AI in each of those categories. And both from a standpoint of accelerating how fast you can do work and therefore how much you can do, but also bringing more consistency and quality and structure to the way that you tackle different activities.
Is it, I mean, obviously it has a very different process to a human, that probabilistic process. Is it, I don't know if I'd use the word creative in the sense that it might offer you a solution, idiosyncratic solution? Do you see value in that for your clients?
If that's what you want, absolutely. So give you an example. One of the ways I use it is I've created a virtual advisory board. So one of the other hats I wear is I'm chairman of an ASX-listed fintech company called BeforePay. And we're expanding our proposition overseas. But we're a small company, we can't afford lots of high-flying international advisors. So I created a virtual advisory board for me. And so if we're thinking about, okay, how might we take this particular proposition into Asia and which countries should we consider? I can go and consult my virtual advisory board and get their perspectives on it. And they can bring new ideas. And I can actually, this is going to sound a bit weird, but it's true, I can get them debating with each other.
Yep.
And out of that collision of ideas, you often generate new ideas.
So almost Socratic method within the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get value out of it, but that ability to both interrogate an idea that you have in a structured way or bring new ideas to bear from different contexts. Because, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the consumer lending market in Indonesia, but the AI does. And so my ability to contrast what certain competitors are doing there with what we might be doing here and what can we learn from that, it's incredibly powerful.
Thank you. Do you, in your discussions with your clients, do you see a pattern of difference between how public sector clients approach this versus private, or is it just vary within each bucket?
I've been pleasantly surprised with the level of senior engagement and enthusiasm in government departments over this. We've been running educational sessions for the leadership teams of various government departments. And as I said, I actually ran 4 of these sessions last week in Canberra. And it was remarkable how serious and engaged the senior teams were. What I have seen is when you go below the most senior teams, then you start getting people who are really worried about the risk aspects and what does this mean for my career and that. So I think you have those phenomena in private sector companies as well, but certainly government has some peculiarities around data privacy, data sovereignty, Freedom of Information Act requests that have to be taken into account. But I think there is real impetus and energy from the most senior leaders in government to take advantage of this, and I think that's a really good thing.
Excellent. Look, like you at 1 a.m. with AI, I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but you have the ability to push back, I guess. AI doesn't. So I'll ask one more, and it's outside the world of AI. You've had a very illustrious career. Our viewership are people at various points of their career. What advice, coming out of your career, what advice do you have to emerging leaders, I mean, in this age of AI, about getting the best out of themselves and their workforce and their agencies?
Wow. So there's a couple things that come to mind, and I don't know what the right order of these is. But for me, number one is being curious. I'm lucky in that I'm just inherently curious. But the world is moving incredibly fast. That's a bit of a cliche, but right now this AI paradigm shift is huge. And so I think being interested in it, and you don't have to be super technical. I mean, I have a history degree. I haven't written code in decades, but I'm able to ask good questions, and that's a big part of it. So I think continue to be curious and explore and try these things and reflect.
Almost adventurous in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. You can't break it. It can't hurt you. Try these things, and I've learned by trying and going, okay, that didn't work. Well, okay, what about this? And so that notion is really important. I think the second thing for me is around being willing to learn to think critically about what you're doing. And I think one of the dangers of AI is that people can be lazy and just take whatever it gives you. So I think it's another angle on curiosity, I guess, is how nurturing the ability to think critically and look at an issue from multiple perspectives rather than just focusing on doing things fast. And I think the people who are able to be thoughtful and think about problems from multiple directions, I think are going to be very valuable. And then,
so is that AI is a tool, it's not a substitute for your own judgment?
Absolutely. I mean, my personal mantra on this is it's still my work.
Yep.
Whatever it is, it's still my work. I can't blame the AI. It's just a tool. It's still my work. I still have to apply my judgment over the top of that. And I guess the generic point I would make is that taking an interest in other people's success is probably one of the most important drivers of future career growth. I was talking to a couple of our graduates yesterday in a session, and just said, focus on delivering good quality work on time and being good to work with. And being good to work with is a lot about taking an interest in other people's success and being generous with your time and trying to help people. And if you do that, then people tend to want you around, and you get more opportunities, and your career progresses. And that's basically been my philosophy.
Well, thank you. It isn't 1 a.m, but that's a lovely note to finish on. You've been great, Brian. This is an incredibly interesting topic, and thank you.
Thanks, Roland. Thanks for having me.